Hi there, fifth graders. Today we are going to continue talking about our text features. So our I can today is going to be, I can identify text features in a text and show why they're there, how they help us understand the text. So we're going to continue our I can from on Tuesday, but today you are not going to be uploading your different text features that you discover during your reading time to a class kick activity like this. You're going to be using sticky notes today. And if you don't have sticky notes handy, then I'd get some lined paper. And you're going to need to write down your 3 different text features you ran into and their importance in the text. Today, I am going to continue because we did not finish, upside down, silly Miss Pierce. I'm going to continue reading about the Native American environment and also the Native Americans' adaptations. And so I'm going to show you as I read today the different types of text features I'm running into as a reader and how they help support me. Some text features help me navigate the text, figure out where to go. Some text features explain more about what the actual text is telling me. They might give me a photograph, labels, a chart, a map. There are many different types of text features as we learned on our PowerPoint slide. And the more that we read nonfiction, the more we're going to be exposed to different types of text features. Some authors use a variety. Some authors that write nonfiction maybe don't use as many. It's author choice. So keep in mind, depending on the nonfiction book that you're reading, you might discover that there are different amounts of nonfiction text features within the text. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to reading. But before I do, I want to just recap from yesterday. We pointed out that we had a heading on my page, and the heading helped us as readers know what we were going to read about in this section. It says Native Americans and the environment. So I'm going to hear about the different Native American environments that they lived in. And then we identified down here that there is a photograph because this is a real picture. And this helps us get a visual of what the 4 different environments were. And they also have a label telling us which one it is. So this is the picture of a grassland, or sorry, I should say photograph. This is the photograph of the desert, photograph of the mountains, the label tells us, and then the photograph of the Arctic ice fields. So these 2 text features work together along with a caption we have over here. The caption helps tell us what the actual photograph, sometimes we do have pictures or illustrations too within a nonfiction text, and they tell us what the photograph, picture, illustration is sharing with us. It gives us more information that goes along with it. The other thing we didn't discuss on the slideshow is that page numbers are considered text features. They help guide us through the text. So I'm going to pick up where we left off. We left off at the end of this paragraph here, and I'm going to continue reading the next part of the page, and then I'm going to flip and continue into the next section. Today, you have a goal. Your goal, you have to write 3 sticky notes. So I'm going to have my sticky notes handy as a reader, and I'm going to have, sometimes it's helpful for me when you're home remote learning that if you're writing in pen, but make sure it's nice and neat, but I can read it easier than pencil, or make sure your pictures are close when you send me the pictures of your 3 sticky notes today. Instead of doing it on a class kick assignment, we're going to go ahead and write down the 3 different text features that I ran into, and I'm hoping you run into some new text features today when you're reading. And then I want you to write down how they help support the text. So we'll talk about that as I read today. So that is our goal as readers. Also, I want you to keep in mind you're learning about Native Americans. Keep that new knowledge here. If you want to write down some important information while I'm reading to you today, have some sticky notes handy and feel free to do so. I'm going to go ahead and continue reading. As Native Americans spread across North America, they settled in many types of natural environments. Look at the 4 natural environments pictured below. What do these images tell you about each environment's climate, vegetation, and natural resources? So we talked yesterday that this directed us to this photograph of the different environments, and we could talk about the climate. We know a climate of a desert is hot, and an Arctic ice field is really cold. We might have a variance of climate changes in the mountains as we do in grasslands. And so thinking about the natural resources, I noticed that in the desert, we're not going to have these big trees to help us make homes. So they had to make do with the different natural resources that they had within their environment. The picture helps us make those inferences. The photograph. The photograph helps us make our inferences as to what the climate is like, the vegetation, meaning the plant life, and other natural resources that might be within the area, like the different types of animals. Obviously, in the mountains, someone could deer, elk, bear. In the desert, snakes, lots of insects. There's going to be a variance in natural resources depending on where that Native American tribe decided to settle. So these photographs are very helpful for us as readers. I'm going to go ahead and continue reading up here. One environment Native Americans settled in was the grasslands. Most grasslands in North America get only enough rain to support grass and small bushes. A second type of environment Native Americans settled in was the deserts. Deserts get very little rain. People living in the desert areas most often dig wells and ditches to get enough water for drinking and raising crops. And then a third environment Native Americans settled in was the mountains. The mountains of North America receive lots of rain and snow. The lower parts of mountains are often covered by forests of pine. And we have spruce trees. A fourth environment settled by Native Americans was the ice fields of the Arctic, near the North Pole. The Arctic is made up of huge ice sheets that permanently cover the land. Most Native Americans chose to settle in areas that had the most natural resources. These environments had mild climates and plenty of food and water. Fewer people chose to live in the areas where they had fewer resources to support life, such as the desert environment of the Southwest and the icy environment of the Arctic. So what I have to recall a minute, and what the text features help me do, is the four environments that I just learned about. The photographs was grasslands, deserts, mountains, and Arctic ice fields. And the text stated that most Native Americans settled in the mountains and in the grasslands. The deserts and the Arctic ice fields were harder to find natural resources to live and adapt and survive. Without these text features on the page, I might not have the best understanding of what the author was writing. These text features help me understand the text. So one thing I might write today, because we did not write this yesterday, is one text feature that I'm running into is a label. And that's my first text feature. And I'm going to write this text feature. And I'm okay if you abbreviate with TF for text feature. So the first thing notice I did on my sticky note is I wrote what type of text feature it was. It's a label. And now I'm writing how this label helps support the photograph. This text feature helps support the photograph on this page. It tells what it is. It says mountains, and it shows us what the mountain environment looks like. Real quick sidebar, this word right here has two roots in it, photo and graph. What does photo mean? Light. What does graph mean? To write or draw. Good noticings. And I hope you noticed that too when I was writing today. So first step, we put what our text feature is, and it was a label, and then you write how it helps support. Today, you're gonna need to do 3 of these. I'm going to go ahead and turn to the next page. I have one done and I'm going to want to do two more. Before I start reading Native American adaptations to the environment, I'm noticing lots of different text features. There is a photograph because this is a real picture. There is a caption right here that tells about the photograph. I have another heading. I have bold words and then text boxes that give definitions of the bold words. And this could be whether we want to consider like another heading and writing. Some people might say because it's in a different color, it's like a sidebar to add on to the text. And so as you can see, I have page numbers, lots of different text features. Obviously, as I keep flipping through, we continue to experience different text features. Like here we have a heading and then a subheading. Different types of cutouts and sidebars, and the sky's the limit. Lots of text features in this nonfiction text. I'm going to go ahead and look at the photograph here. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to go ahead and read the caption. And then we're going to talk about how these two text features work together. And I might indicate those two on a sticky note. So it says here, an Inuit family sits in front of their camp at Plover Bay in northern Alaska. Inflated sealskins hang from the wooden poles on the tent frame. The Inuit attached inflated sealskins to harpoons and use them as floats. Interesting. So they would use some of their natural resources, such as the sealskins, and they would hang them and eventually use them as floats. Wow, super cool. It shows them right in the picture and what they were doing. This caption goes along right with the photograph, explaining what the photograph is of. It's of an Inuit family, and they're sitting in front of their camp, so it shows us kind of, in a sense, what their home looked like. So you can see what they're doing with their clothing, and then how they used to use sealskins for floats. So something else I might write on a sticky note is that I ran into a photograph and a caption. And those are both of my text features. And now I'm going to go ahead and write how they help support the text. These two text features show what the text is about. The caption explains the photograph. So as you can see, some text features work together hand in hand to help the reader understand the text. Something I noticed here that we haven't labeled, it's a new text feature, is a bold word. I'm going to go ahead and indicate that on my sticky note. But I'm going to go ahead and read first and then talk about how that bold word is helpful to us and maybe what the author did over here. It says Native American adaptations to their environment. I hope that you remember what adaptations are. And if not, we're going to get a good definition. But we had a lot of that discussion when we read Night of the Spadefoot Toads, and we talked about the different biomes. So many of you already have that prior knowledge. Native Americans had to adapt their way of life to their surroundings. Each group had to find ways to use the available natural resources wisely so they could survive in its particular environment. One group that lived in a very harsh environment was the Inuit, who are also known as Eskimos. Like many Native Americans, the Inuit called themselves by a name that means the people. The Inuit lived in the northwestern Alaska, northern Canada, and Greenland. places that are part of the Arctic. The Arctic ice fields are a place of long, cold winters and land that is frozen most of the year. Wow, you guys, can you imagine living in a place like that? How difficult it would be to adapt. So the fact that they found these great ways to survive is pretty incredible. The Inuit had to make special adaptations to their harsh environment. They hunted animals such as whales, walruses, seals, salmon, caribou, polar bears, Arctic foxes, squirrels, and birds. The Inuit did not waste any part of the animals they captured. They ate the meat. They sewed animal skins together to make clothing, blankets, and tents. They burned animal fat for fuel. They used bones to make dog sleds and tent frames. So in this paragraph, it's explaining how these Inuit people, Eskimos, that live in Arctic environments adapted by using lots of different animals for their survival. It says the word adaptations in there. And then if we didn't know about it as a reader, I would use the support from the text because the text is telling me that they had to do things to live in the harsh environment. So if I had to use my text clues, I might then infer as a reader that adapting is a way to help us survive in an area. Let's go ahead and look at what it says. Adaptations. Changes in a way of life that allow people to survive in a particular environment. The author used two text features here. They used a text box to give the definition, which I can also find in the glossary in the back of the book, and that's another text feature. And they also used a bold word. I'm going to go ahead and draw a little arrow that I have a bold word. And I want to talk about why would the author bold adaptations? Well, this section, if I go back to the heading, which is another text feature, is about how Native Americans adapted to their environment. To understand this, we have to know what adaptation means. So I'm going to put that the bold word is the text feature I ran into. And this text feature shows how important this word is for the reader. So I have my 3 sticky notes done for today while I was reading my nonfiction. Notice that today while I was reading, I did my 3 sticky notes. So on the remote learning plan, it's going to say that you read for 30 minutes. If you do more than 3 sticky notes, awesome. But you have to do at least 3 today. I'm going to go ahead and just finish reading the top section right here. And then I'm going to release you to go ahead and read your nonfiction text about your exciting topic. And you're going to pick 3 text features to write down, just like I did, and you're going to write how they helped you and what their purpose is. Let's go ahead and start back up here and finish reading about how Native Americans adapt to their environment. They also carved bones into tools such as knives and harpoons, long spears. The Inuit even learned to fill seal skins with air so they would float. They attached the skins to walruses or whales that they had harpooned. These floats helped to tire out the animals when they tried to escape by diving underwater. To build shelters, the Inuit used the materials that they found around them. In the summer, they made tents by stretching the skins of the caribou or seals over driftwood. Sometimes they placed heavy stones or pieces of bone at the bottom of the tent to keep it in place. In the winter, they built houses called igloos out of snow and ice. So another bold word, and if I couldn't make an inference within the evidence in the text, the author was really nice and gracious and gave us a text box here with the definition. Driftwood, wood that has washed up onto the shores of rivers or oceans. Last paragraph. To keep warm, the Inuit dressed in animal skins and furs. To protect their eyes from the bright glare of the sun shining on snow and ice, they made snow goggles. Snow goggles were made from bone or wood and had narrow openings to look through. The Inuits spread black soot ashes from fires on the inside to keep light from shining in their eyes. Wow. So it sounds like these Inuit Eskimos that lived in the Arctic regions found plenty of ways to adapt, but it seems like it was a lot of work versus if you lived in the grasslands or the mountains. So if the Native Americans lived in the Arctic regions or the deserts, they found ways to adapt and survive, but it sounds like due to the limited natural resources, it was harder. So I'm going to leave you with you heading to your reading. I can't wait to hear about what you read today. And remember, we're practicing our I can. I can identify text features within a text, write them down, and I can write the purpose of why they're there. And then I would like for you to send me a picture of them. Okay, happy reading today. Bye for now, friends.